muted in this household. Awful. I've been messing around with my OBS settings, so I am far more zoomed in than I was expecting, which is a little startling. How is everybody doing today? How was everybody's weekend? I gotta update today's activity because I didn't do that. Horrifying. Bad me. We got so many folks in chat today. Hey Analog, hey Cassidy, hey Marcy, hey Andy. And I think I got all the names of the people who are at least vocally in chat. Hello. Yeah, I'm super excited about today. So today we are going to be, we're going to be talking about the evolution of the internet, basically, and the economics of the economic factors that drove the development of the internet and how that shifted from being something primarily funded by public institutions and by the US military complex to being something primarily owned and operated by private entities. So thank you. I'm feeling cute today. Group parachute. Okay, let's do it. Cue drop. One of these days I'll actually fix the goddamn drop thing. You're going to your first concert. Very fun. Everybody join the drop and we will have a race when I feel like it is time. Heart. Water. I don't have water today. Only tea. Only tea for me. What was I gonna do? Oh, I was gonna update the activity of today. Doop. Also, we're gonna lock the emoji and parachute drop and stuff in place. Okay. Alrighty, y'all. Oh no! Someone got you sick! That's no fun. Alrighty, everybody join in the drop because we are about to start. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and the drop begins! Let the race commence! Wow, I'm just punching the shit out of everybody, aren't I? Oh? Marcy, are you gonna bump him back into line? No, we all missed! Awful! Oh, I'm sorry. Being sick on the weekend sucks. Especially, yeah, being sick on the weekend sucks. I always hated when I would get sick during breaks in school, because then it's like I was supposed to use this time resting, and instead I spent this time resting from an illness, and I still need to rest from school. At least the cat ended up with a cookie. Very true. You know what they say about giving cats cookies? I guess that's what they say about giving mice cookies. But yeah, I'm super excited. So just a brief overview of what we have to look forward to this week. This week we are primarily going to be talking about the history of the internet. Specifically kind of the evolution of the network maps themselves. For broad overview of what I am actually looking forward to talking about and like why we're talking about this. Oh no! Thank you. I will fix it. Appreciate it. These are the wrong dates. Give me one moment. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna do the spiel and then we're gonna fix it. So these dates are wrong. Oh no. But what we're going to be doing is we are talking about, what I'm wanting to drive home is the fact that the internet, big capital I internet, is in fact an interconnected network of multiple internets, lowercase internets. And that was something that used to be more commonly known. And my hope is that by increasing the understanding that that is what the internet, capital I internet is, we can get to a point where, I'm so sorry, Give me like 2 minutes and then I will be back. Cat troubles. Hello, I was incorrect. A roommate handled the cat things. So, I am back. I'm gonna stop mincing words. I am not a fan of major corporations costing people a lot of money and making the internet worse. I think it would be super neat if the internet was something that people could individually decide to hook up to, that small groups of neighbors could have their own little network, that, like, something that functioned more like a public utility, perhaps, for the aspects of the network that need to be the, like, super fast parts, the backbone of the network. And the truth of the matter is that the denser a network gets, the less likely it is to have, like, single points of failures where the internet goes down for a large group of people. So if we can get to a place where we have more, like, interconnected meshing of these various little networks around the country, we wind up with a more robust internet anyway. This is not a very succinct way of saying the point that I'm getting at, but my goal is that through talking about how the infrastructure of the internet and the various little networks that make up the internet, by tracking how those grew and how the ownership of the physical hardware changed over time, that we will be able to see the ways in which these corporations came in and took this public good and made it something that they could make lots of profit off of, and limit access to. So that's the goal. Cheers to you, Cassidy. Yeah, like the AT&T outage a couple weeks ago. Exactly. So yeah, that's the plan. So I have been reading through a ridiculous number of RFC documents. For those who do not know, RFC is the, here, I'll just pull it up. Look at me with functional little windows. Isn't it awesome? But yeah, the RFC series is the technical organizational documents about the internet, including specifications and policy documents produced by the IETF, the RTF, the IAB, independent submissions, and the editorial board. So basically, RFC is the thing that holds a lot of the history of the internet, as well as a lot of the, like, agreed upon protocols that let various devices on the internet talk to each other. Been reading tons of these. Found one called Hobbes' History of the Internet, which is one of my major sources for what we're going to be talking about today. And I've also been doing some pulling information from other resources to track down when different nodes joined different networks that became the bigger internet. So yeah, I've already started working on a map. And hopefully y'all can see everything. Did you see that I went ahead and set up my window layout ahead of time? Isn't it awesome that we don't have to sit here and flail around for like 6 to 10 minutes while I try to get the windows to behave in OBS? Woo! But yeah. And then, as I said, Our objective today is in my objectives file. Haha! To create a year-by-year map of the networks that led to the internet. Flailing is fun sometimes, but flailing also eats up a lot of time. So this is what ARPANET looks like in 1969, and it's something that you're probably pretty familiar with. So ARPANET originally had, was established with 4 nodes. Holy cow, Marcy! That is a lot of consecutive streams. I am very impressed by you. Thank you for your patronage. Oh yeah, I've also been digging around like free nets that are still around, and it's been fun. Oh, this is gonna be a super cool article for us to read when we get to the 80s. But where was I going? What am I looking for? Oh, you couldn't even see the super cool article that I was talking about. What was I doing? Do you guys know what I was doing? Did I say what I was doing aloud? Maybe I was trying to get to... Oh, that's what I was looking at. Okay, so yeah, the very first, I was gonna pull up, Hobbes' internet history thing. RFC 2235. I was feeding cookies to all of the neighborhood cats. Goodness. Yeah. How capitalism made the net weird. That's going to be our topic this week, and also probably for a couple weeks, because it's a bigger topic than I thought. Okay, so we're going to start in 1969. So in 1969, we get the very first nodes of ARPANET brought online. Not only do we get ARPANET, but we also get Merit Network, which is a lesser known network, but it was an X25 network that was up in Michigan. And that cluster of university networks up in Michigan actually started a lot of the, like, I think was really the home to the beginnings of the, like, free internet open source software vibes that wound up spreading throughout what became the internet and hacker community. So that's what we need to do. Is first thing we gotta do is we gotta add the Merit Network people to the thingy, which means that I have to figure out where the University of Michigan is. So okay, so it's kind of in the bottom chunk of the thumb. I think I may have made these dots too big. So that's gonna be the University of Michigan. And it was through these initial X25 based systems that my father actually got up to his very first escapades on the internet. And I think I'm gonna make the background a little see-through as well, just to make it a little easier to see the text. Okay. So we got University of Michigan, and then what else we got? We've got Wayne University. Yeah, Wayne State University. Okay, so these are like pretty geographically co-located. I also definitely made my dots too big because I was expecting distances similar to ARPANET's. So we're gonna make these smaller. Let's go with 14. Directions to the University of Michigan. Quite close together. Okay. And I'll be giving these graphics out to people who want them over on my Patreon. Will be the plan. Fam. Okay. Beep, beep, beep. There we go. We're gonna increase that slightly because I think that's too small. No, that's fine. Okay. I'm fussing. Okay. Come on. But yeah, a thing that's interesting about the X25 based systems is that they were not easily adaptable to TCP/IP, which is part of why you hear about the Merit network less, because they didn't use the same style of packet switches. Wayne State. Go on that side. Okay, and then we had Michigan State was also a part of this initial network. No wonder these guys got together and did this. They're very, very close, so it wouldn't have been too expensive to run the wires. An important thing to keep in mind is that you have to have physical wires connecting every single thing on the internet. So, or you have to have things connected via Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi didn't exist at this point in time. Boop, boop, boop. Michigan State. Awesome. And with that, we have our very first what about radio? There were, yes, that's true. There is the radio packet network. So you can do things over radio as well. Which we will be getting to in, I think, the early 70s, if I'm recalling properly. Yeah. Let's beef those up. And that is the state of the internet in 1969. Then we get in, let's pull up our next thing. 1970, we get the Aloha Net, which starts in the University of Hawaii, but is not connected online until 1972, I think. 1972, yep. So we're gonna do some looking into AlohaNet and see what the original AlohaNet nodes were. AlohaNet used a new method of medium access called Aloha Random Access, an experimental ultra high frequency UHF. Yeah, so I was wrong. We get, oh no, I guess I said 70s. AlohaNet communicated over radio, which is very, very cool. So it didn't actually require physical wires to be run. It's also the first time we see this idea of handshakes introduced. So here we go. Nodes did not wait for the channel to be clear before sending, like you would with a typical radio call, but instead waited for acknowledgement and successful receipt of a message, and resent it if it was not received. Nodes would also stop and retransmit data if they detected any other messages while transmitting. While simple to implement, this resulted in an efficiency of only 18.4%. A later advancement, slotted Aloha, improved the efficiency of the protocol by reducing the chance of collision, improving throughput to 36.8%. Yes, extremely slow compared to using telephone wires, but it was the very first wireless data packet network. So I think it definitely deserves a mention on our lovely map. One thing that's going to be difficult for this lovely map is also that we're going to need Europe at some point, but we're going to leave them off for now. So let's find outline map of Hawaii. Images. Wow. Alrighty. Copy image. Paste image. We've got Hawaii. Hurrah. That is true. So much easier to send messages this way with the new radio thing than having to mail things island to island, or mail them or send them by boat to the United States. Let's see if I can get this to be filled with what? Got a diff. I would like to make this look the same as my map, but I don't know how to do that. And I would much rather talk about the internet than mess around with, whatchamacallit. Than mess around with Adobe all day. So, whoop. Oops. Well, that's 1970, and the other one is 1969. And we will move this back into here. Haha. equals map. And then this one, let's change the opacity back to 100 and do the opacity changing at this level. 65%. Look at us go. So efficient. So good. Okay, where was AlohaNet located? University of Hawaii. Goal was to use low-cost commercial radio equipment to connect users on Oahu and other Hawaiian islands with a central time-sharing computer on the main Oahu campus. So the Oahu sites. Wonder if anyone has done a fancy animation of the internet coming together like a map. I have looked for one, but I've only found ones of like the ARPANET centered one. I haven't seen one that brings in all of the various networks, which is kind of what I'm hoping this will be able to be used to do. AlohaNet locations, 1970. At its peak, AlohaNet supported 40 users at different locations on Oahu and Maui. User terminals connected to the host computer via a terminal control unit that communicated at 9600 bits per second. Cool. I'm gonna add this to, Ha! Abramson and his fellow professors, Wes Peterson and Neld Weldon, joined forces to create a team with both communications and computer background. He recalls, so we cast about for a research topic that we thought would make sense to the Department of Defense, that we would also be interested in, and said, well, communications for computers make sense. The telephone system appeared not to make sense at that time, especially in Hawaii, and we thought that we had something that was intellectually stimulating and a package we could sell to ARPA. That's how this all started. Nice. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look up where, I'm gonna switch back to this view. And what we're going to do is we're going to figure out where the University of Hawaii is. And then we're going to do some sort of like colored in shape for the various islands that it could reach in 1970. So University of Hawaii. No, not the North Pacific Island. University of Hawaii. Okay. So, cool. It's kind of at the bottom edge of that island. True, those nice big Cold War defense spending checks were nice. They were worth quite a bit of money. That's not right. Oval, there we go. No. Ellipse with an L, that makes sense. Okay, let's make that 14. By 14. Is that what I used for the other ones? Yeah. And then color. What's a color I haven't used yet? There we go. And text. We've got University of Hawaii. Come on, I just need to know a text size. 30, okay. Timeshare computers just seem so alien. I love timeshare computers as like a thing that we did. I think that they're probably, you know, it's nice that we have computers that are powerful enough, like that it is cheap enough to make consumer computers that we can all have our own computer, not just a terminal to a bigger computer. But yeah, timeshare computers were wild, weren't they? Okay, and so then from the University of Hawaii, they were able to do calls all around the island of Oahu, eventually, over time. And then we got to copy paste, and stick it over in our key, for we now have a new member. And there we have it, folks. We've got AlohaNet. Okay. I believe at this point in time, we also get the addition of a couple more to ARPANET. Okay, yeah, so in 1970, we also have the beginning of ARPANET using the network control protocol. I looked a little into this because that seemed a little strange to me. The answer is really that there was no hard and fast time where they began using the network control protocol because they didn't really have a need to name a particular protocol for communicating between machines until they started specifically working on a new one, at which point they like retroactively came up with a name for the thing they had been using before. So once TCP/IP started getting worked on, they retroactively named the thing NCP, the thing that they've been using. Okay, so let's see, 1970. Were there any additions to the Merit network? Another thing that's worth highlighting is that all of these, so the Merit network, for example, was sponsored by the National Science Foundation and the state of Michigan, so it was publicly funded. ARPANET was funded by ARPA, which is the ARPA stands for not the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the Advanced Research Projects Agency, closely related to the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, which is DARPA, which people are probably more familiar with. Let's see, 1970. Yeah, I don't think we get any new additions to the ARPA network in 1970, but in 1971... Oh, I'm a liar. In March 1970, we get our first East Coast ARPANET. There was an IMP at BBN in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Cool. So let's find where Cambridge, Massachusetts is. An IMP is essentially a switch. It's the, what does IMP stand for? I always forget. IMP. Interface message processor. It's the packet switching node. It's the, yeah, it's what forwards the packets from one computer to another computer. So Cambridge, Massachusetts is part of Boston and is beep, beep, beep. Time to see if I can figure out where things are. Okay. So this map does not have the nice little curl that often helps me identify Massachusetts. So what are we going to use as our landmarks instead? We've got Maine. Come down. Oh, here it is. There's Boston. Okay. So let's make a circle. And stick a new one over here. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. And then we're gonna make this dot smaller, just like we were supposed to already. And we put it here, which is where Boston is. And that is BBN. And where did that wire run? Let's take a look. So here we've got Hawaii, which is connected by a wire. This map is from 1973. God, I'm so glad that network diagrams have gotten better. Stanford is here, connecting to Ames, SRI. Where's two there? Okay, we've got UCLA. Connects. That's weird. We don't have a direct connection that I'm seeing to BBN. So let's look and see when MIT got connected. ARPANET map 1970. December 69. June of 1970, we have a couple more have been added. Did Bell Labs get involved with ARPANET, or did they come in after? Bell Labs got involved with, we're going to jump ahead of my PowerPoint because I can answer your question. Bell Labs got involved quite late. Bell Labs got involved in 1987 officially, and got involved in the NSF net. Which, so they got involved as a cooperative agreement between Merit Network, as via Merit Network Incorporated, and through that, AT&T Bell Labs became involved in maintaining the infrastructure backbone of NSFNet, which was eventually made into beep beep beep. Oh, y'all can't see. Next time I need to come up with a different way of doing this. I felt like this was going to be a good system, but yeah. So Bell Labs was mostly involved with the commercial side of things from the beginning. In 1976, we have Bell Labs creating the Unix to Unix copy program, which enabled you to copy things from a Unix machine to another Unix machine. Out of this, we wind up getting Usenet. Usenet was built using UUCP in 1979. It was established between Duke and UNC. Then a bit later, we've got AT&T starts becoming more and more involved in the early 90s. So in 87, we've got them becoming involved via Merit Network as far as maintaining infrastructure of the high-speed backbone of the internet. And then we get AT&T winds up being responsible for providing particular services, specifically directory and database services. And then, so an important thing to know is that in 1992, the government started officially allowing commercial ISPs to do things. And it was at that point that you start seeing this big jump in the number of ISPs that are attempting to take over who are attempting to provide large areas of the country with internet access. This really, really thoroughly catches on by the mid-90s. And the National Science Foundation actually winds up pulling back NSFNet and making that private, exclusive to research, and instead is like, okay, everybody who was coming through NSFNet is now going to be going through commercial providers instead. What's funny is that when this transition happens, we have a huge number of outages that happen in 1996, which leads to a lot of speculation about whether private enterprise can actually handle this. And we get some speed upgrades and things. I know I jumped way ahead, but I hope that answered your question, Analog. The answer is Bell Labs was... AT&T Bell Labs became far more involved on the later end of things. As far as whether or not Bell Labs was wired into ARPANET, I'm not positive. Bell Labs, ARPANET. I don't think they did. Yeah, I don't think ARPANET was wired into Bell Labs. Would y'all be interested in me going through the Hobbs internet timeline and giving you the spicy summarized, these are why these various bits of things are important version? I am again focusing primarily on like growth of the networks and interconnectingness of the networks, which is part of why I'm working on these diagrams, because I think that like having an actual map that shows you step by step how these various different diagrams grow is really, really helpful for that. Oh no, that's so sad. Why is it falling behind things? That should never happen. Okay, fixed. Cool, then let's do it. So congratulations, you landed like really close to the center. That's very fun. So yeah, as you saw on our, I just needed to sneak up on the pile. Couldn't let it see you coming. Damn, ad break. We hate them. You know what sucks? The ad breaks don't even pay very much. Like, as far as ad revenue goes on various different websites, Twitch has like the lowest, like their ads are worth the least for creators, which just sucks, that we get stuck with them. But, yeah, so let's, welcome back. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duplicate this PowerPoint and reference material. We're gonna delete this one and this one, and then over from read along we're gonna copy this one, we're gonna paste it here, and then we're gonna have fun. Okay, so in 1969, as I mentioned, we've got ARPANET gets commissioned. And so that's those very first 4 nodes. So that's Stanford Research Institute, which is often referenced on the maps as SRI. That's the University of California at Santa Barbara, University of Utah, and UCLA are the very first 4 ARPA nodes. They use IMPs to transfer, to pass data in between them. And then we also get the University of Michigan. The University of Michigan, Michigan State, and Wayne State have their own little network that is called the Merit Network. And over here is where you get the first BBSs being born, once we get a little further in time. Next up in 1970, as we mentioned, AlohaNet, which is radio-based, gets created over in Hawaii, and they continue to grow that over time, though they are not able to connect it to the mainland until 1972. And then also in 1970, we get the addition of, I think we saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get, in 1970, we also get 5 new ARPANET nodes. Most significantly, we get ARPANET nodes on the East Coast. And those are, I believe, done with like run wire. And those are called long haul connections, and they actually use different wire over time than the up close short ones, because the idea was, well, we need it to be a lot faster. So that was a cool thing. And it's actually part of why TCP IP was so difficult to design, because they were like, hey, we have to send the packets in different sizes and stuff when we have to send them over these long haul connections. So yeah. Then next thing, we got 1971. In 1971, we get, oh, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the Eclectic Library. We talk about computers and the history of the internet and hacker culture and shit here. Also sometimes sci-fi, also sometimes fantasy, also sometimes AD&D if you're into that. Hang around, it's a cool time. But yeah, so in 1971, we get, hello! Feel free to introduce yourself in chat if you feel so moved. We are a friendly crowd. And if you're not feeling talkative, that's also totally fine. Nobody is pressured to talk. We have, for example, the Lurky Duck, who, true to name, often lurks. Yeah. So in 1971, we get up to 15 hosts. So that's an additional... Wow, I can do math in my head. We get six more nodes connected to ARPANET, including NASA. Exciting. And then on a technological side, we also start having email, which is distinctly a pressure as we move forward in time, because people start hearing about how they're able to send each other emails, and other faculties at other universities want to be able to send emails to one another as well for fast communication purposes. And so there becomes more and more of a pressure to start interconnecting these various discrete networks that are growing across the country. Fast forwarding to 1972, we've got ARPANET. AlohaNet actually gets connected to ARPANET, which is huge, like absolutely wild. That is wild for a couple of reasons. One, Hawaii is really far away. Like, Hawaii's really far away. And being able to send semi-instantaneous messages from Hawaii to Boston, absolutely bonkers. The other thing that's really exciting about it is it means that this new system, ARPANET, which is based primarily on telephone wires, is able to interface with a radio packet network, which is using a fundamentally different kind of hardware. So that's super cool. And again, continues to pave the way for the TCP/IP protocol and that network stack diagram that we tend to see, that separates out method of communication over the hardware from the communication protocols that are being used to speak from node to node. Oh yeah, email was not designed to suit corporate interests. Email was designed for college professors and for research scientists. But yeah, at this point, we are starting to get pretty darn big. The internet has gotten much larger. And so they start, and again, you're having these multiple different smaller networks coming into existence. And so we need to start thinking of ways to interconnect them, so that we don't have to do this ad hoc every single time we want to add a new network to the body of larger networks. So the Internetworking Working Group is established, with Chairman Vinton Cerf. You'll hear this name a couple different times throughout the next couple decades. He winds up being pretty significant in shaping policy and protocols for the internet. So yeah, INWG winds up coming into existence and taking on a role in deciding and setting agreed upon communication protocols across different networks. Next important thing that happens is in 1973 we get our first European connections. So the University College of London and the Royal Radar Establishment in Norway get connected to ARPANET. Super, super cool. You can probably guess why those particular countries got connected. Secret, it's the Cold War. We have a special relationship with England. Our intelligence agencies have a special relationship, and our nations have a special relationship. So we wanted to be able to talk to London faster. And we also get connected to Norway, which is another one of our allies during the Cold War. Then, oh yeah, super cool thing happens in 1973. We get the very first ideas of Ethernet, where Ethernet is a way to send communication quickly via wire between different devices, between different computers. So that paves the way for having desktop workstations, so multiple computers that are powerful enough to do computations on their own and have the ability to send those computations to other computers on the same network. Would not have been possible without Ethernet. Next up, yeah, LAN parties. Anybody had a good LAN party lately? I don't think I've had a LAN party since like the 2000s. We used to hang out and all play Civilization 4 together. It was awesome. Bring over your desktop computer, bring over your tower and your car. God, that was a time. Next big thing, in 1974, we get the first paper on the TCP/IP protocol published. It is worth noting that this is the very first protocol. We do not actually implement TCP/IP until version 4, IPv4, which happens in the 80s, early 80s. We also get a new network. So in 1974, we get a new network, which is Telenet. Telenet is opened up BBN, which means that, you know, BBN has access to ARPANET, but this is a separate network, but it's just worth noting that those two connections are co-located, so they can connect to each other. But Telenet is the very first commercial version of ARPANET. So that's significant. At this point in time, we're starting to see that commercial aspect of the internet coming into being. So BBN, Telenet. Let's see if we can find anything fun. In 1973, the company formed Telecommunications Corp. To exploit the commercial potential of packet switching. Unfortunately, this venture proved to be ahead of its time. Telenet generated too little cash for BBN to expand the network, which was necessary to win more business. The parent company's interest in Telenet was reduced to 37% in 1976 and about 25% in 1978. When Telenet was acquired by General Telephone and Electronics Corp. The following year, BBN received payment in GTE stock, which it sold in 1981 for $15.1 million. So, BBN creates Telenet and then sells it off to the General Telephone and Electronics Corps. Telenet does stick around, but this is the very first time that there's an attempt at making a commercial version of an internet. Where were we? Hey! I lost it. Where's my Thomas? Where's my Hobbes internet timeline? There we go. Okay. Hopping on down. Operational management of internet, read here as ARPANET, is transferred to DISA, which is still a government agency, I believe. Yeah. DISA is a DoD agency that provides and protects information technology services and capabilities. Defense Information Systems Agency. So transferred out of ARPANET into DISA. And you'll start seeing that there's an increasing, at this point in time, there becomes an increasing separation between things that the military is investing in for their networks and this public, what will eventually become a fairly public utility, which is the internet. For a brief period of time, it's a fairly public utility. Did you know that in the 80s you didn't have to pay to connect to the internet? Isn't that awesome? Don't you wish that was the case still? Next cool thing happens in 1976. Yeah, so 1975 we get operational management of ARPANET passed off from ARPA to the Defense Intelligence System to DISA. I'm terrible at government acronyms. I really should just make a cheat sheet for this class of all of the various different government acronyms and stuff, because there are too many to keep track of. Defense Information Systems Agency. Defense Information Systems Agency. I know, and the worst part is that during this time period, there's a 30-year span where there are a ton of them that are made and then change their names. Yeah, you didn't have to pay for access to bulletin boards. You just called into your local university. Yeah. So Unix to Unix copy gets produced in 1976, which lays the groundwork for Usenet, which we will talk more about. Usenet's cool. Then in 1977, we have a bunch of stuff that happens. One, TheoryNet is created, which it happens at the University of Wisconsin, and it was created for the primary purpose of providing email. Remember how I mentioned that was a substantial pressure to expand the internet? And the cool thing about TheoryNet is that it had its internal network for the university, but the way that people were able to access the email server was via Telenet. So it kind of, using TheoryNet relied on interfacing between multiple different networks. Yeah, they thought the money was going to be best made selling the hardware to access it, and they were relying on the existing telephone infrastructure for public access. Yeah, 100%. And then we get folks like Bill Gates who come along and figure out that it's possible, and the US court system allows this and says it is in fact possible, decides to sell things, to sell software, which was not a thing that people did before. The idea of selling something that was intangible and that could be infinitely replicated without it, like me making a copy of your operating system and using it doesn't affect your operating system at all. But good old Bill Gates figured out that you could sell that and make it an artificially limited resource. And that, my friends, I personally believe is where we started going downhill as far as computer and internet technology. And they realized they should have been selling it as a utility rather than as hardware. Yeah, we get TheoryNet. We also get TimeNet. I don't remember TimeNet. Tell me about TimeNet, oh wonderful internet. Time-sharing service and third-party hardware maintenance company. Okay, so this is another private enterprise. TimeNet is created by two former employees of General Electric's computer department. They create a machine and enable that machine to be used by 32 simultaneous users. Exactly. And part of my hope in talking about this is to make that mess a little easier to understand so that we can start unraveling the mess and fixing it. Because it should be a utility. Internet should be a public utility. And it used to be paid for by the National Science Foundation. But once private money started getting into it, things got a lot more complicated. And honestly, network speeds got a lot more complicated to handle as well, because now you're not only needing to optimize for shortest distance to travel, but you now have this extra idea of, oh, well, I don't want to send packets through certain paths because those cost me more. So you'll wind up actually having lower quality service for the end users, because there's an optimization happening there so that sending packets costs less money for the internet service providers. Internet, water, and certain other utility style things should be guaranteed free for all. Also housing. I agree. God, and the other thing is the internet is very clearly, the way that we do it, at least, is very clearly a natural monopoly. Because it's not like you want every single internet company out there running wires to your house. Like, it's so easy for it to accidentally become a monopoly in a particular area because of legislation surrounding how many wires can be put up on telephone poles. Also the cost of putting up new wires on telephone poles. There are large areas of the country where ISPs are required to share particular wiring so that they don't have that. This is a thing that Google Fiber actually ran into when they were trying to run new wires. They ran into lobbyists and lawsuits from existing telecom companies who were saying, hey, you can't do that. Birmingham already has its allotted number of wires on its telephone poles, etc. Where were we? How do you guys guys feel about this format, by the way? Like this kind of jumping around between various different sources and PowerPoint and a diagram that I'm making. I feel like things have gotten a little stale lately, and I want to make this like a more interactive thing where you guys can ask me questions and stuff while we're still able to like hit all the major points and provide all the information. When do we take a field trip into a mud? Taking a field trip would require me leaving my home. Even if it weren't free, it would be better managed by a local utility than by multinational corporations. Exactly. And like municipality-based ISPs definitely do exist and honestly do pretty well. And that's one thing that I'm really looking forward to talking more about is those municipality-based internet service providers. Because the more we switch towards doing things like that, the more bargaining power we're going to have against these multinational corporations that make really shitty decisions with our internet. And the more robust the internet connection will be across the entire country and across the world. You know, Andy, I think, are there still any Plato nodes running, or did the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign finally shut those down? As far as multi-user dungeons go. Most of them are cheaper and provide better service. The municipality-based internet providers, but they keep being sued by big ISPs for undercutting the market. Yeah, that makes sense. Hey, look what I found. Getting started. Welcome to your first MUD adventure. Welcome to the wonderful world of multi-user dungeons. Maybe the term MUD is new to you, but chances are you've played games that are closely related. MUDs are text-based applications, many of which are games, and some even have graphics these days. A large number of them are RPG games based on medieval fantasy, some are Star Trek, blah blah blah, etc. You play them over the internet with other people from all over the world. It's an interactive novel. I'm ready to continue. TMC is still running. What's TMC? Oh, the MUD connector. Yeah. MUD connector's still running. Last updated July 25th, 2023. That is true. World of Warcraft is essentially a MUD with graphics. Ishar. Dive into the immersive realms of Ishar, a high medieval fantasy MUD offering not just a game, but a spiritual journey of continuous growth and rejuvenation. Experience the profound influence of the deity Varenya, who guides an ever-evolving seasons and rewarding system, crafting a fresh canvas, blah, 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 etc. Cool. My dad knew some people who failed out of college because they spent too much time playing MUDs. Oh, yeah. And then in 1977, we get the first demonstration of ARPANET. The Packet Radio Network, and SatNet, which is a third network that has come into being. I believe it was established in 1970, but don't quote me on that. Very first time that they use the TCP/IP protocol together. And the messages actually wind up getting routed through all three systems. It's very, very cool. In 1979, we get our first MUDs. Thank you, Andy. And we get Usenet, which we no longer have access to through Google, or through our browsers, which is sad. Through Chrome browsers, at least. Colossal Cave Adventure. This one's cool. We get a cooperative network started called BitNet. I don't remember who BitNet was funded by. BitNet, I think, was funded through a combination of National Science Foundation money and something else. Also, BitNet was cool. The way that it worked is if you wanted to join BitNet, you had to buy a modem. So you would buy a modem for your end, and you would buy a modem for the other end. And the modem is the thing that, like, you do your packet switching through. And so you would ship the second modem to whatever site you were connecting to BitNet through. And that was how you joined the network. So you just had that upfront cost of the two pieces of hardware, and then you were good to go. And then you also had to lease a phone line between the two locations. BitNet. When did it... Maybe it was just funded by the universities. I'll want to check that. Brief history of BitNet. BitNet, the Because It's Time network, began in the US as two universities began using a leased telephone circuit for communications between accounts on their mainframe computers. Cool, so it was just these two universities chatting to each other. We're getting to FidoNet. FidoNet was established in the following year, 1983. Can you see why I want to talk about how many different networks there were? And, like, how this was all done for free, or with just upfront hardware cost, and that was it. Like, the internet is still just a bunch of interconnected networks. Our view of them is just obfuscated. In 1983, we get domain names are built. Why did that switch to displaying my... the heck? It is something. Oh, that's why. Because I'm on the wrong place. Oh no, everything's fucked. Why do you do this to me, computer? Why do you hate me? Try feeding OBS a cookie. No. Cookies are just for me. Wow, I've jumped forward a bit, haven't I? Okay, Usenet. Yeah, so key highlights from 1983. We get the very first name server. At the University of Wisconsin, we have very first name server is set up so that people don't have to know the exact path from one machine to the next, nor do they have to remember, they don't have to know the exact path that a message has to travel between networks. And then I believe the next year that is established more broadly with DNS. But in 1983, we get some more interconnections of various networks. We get CSNet and ARPANET get connected. CSNet is one of the various computer science research-focused networks. ARPANET switches to using TCP/IP on January 1st of 1983. It's a hard switch. The MILNet, which is military net, gets separated out of ARPANET. So the DoD starts pulling itself into its own little internet over here. We get the Internet Activities Board replaces one of the other internet overseeing body boards. Europe gets its own research network, and FidoNet gets created. So big year for connecting a bunch of networks and establishing a bunch of new networks. And a number of those new networks use different ways of working. So EARN, for example, used the same sort of infrastructure as BitNet did, where you would just buy a modem and send your modem and lease a telephone line. JUNET, which was Japan's internet, gets created in 1984, and JANET gets established in 1984 as well, for the UK. I don't know what the colored book protocols are, and I wanted to learn about those. You remember in your first days on the internet, there were people from the US and Canada on the same MUDs, and hearing about lag involved in going over the borders between countries. Yeah, there was definitely lag, because our wires were slower then. And you'll still run into that today. Like, if you're talking to someone in Australia, you're going to have more delayed time. There's going to be bigger delays if you're doing, like, Skype or something. Did you know that Skype was originally set up as a peer-to-peer system? Darn those laws of physics, making it take a certain amount of time for light to travel and sound to travel. Okay, cool. So that's what it was. The colored book protocols were similar to basically our TCP/IP protocols. So what it's saying is that that this particular network, JANET, didn't use TCP/IP. It used a different set of protocols. And honestly, this is where the whole corporation thing starts taking off speed, like really, really fast. So I think it's probably a good point to start, or to stop, because what you've seen so far is, you know, we started out with two networks, then we got a radio packet-based network out in Hawaii. Then we very rapidly start adding new nodes to those networks and start establishing new networks which start interconnecting and start trying different methods of like making it financially sustainable for these institutions to do it. Some of them are funded exclusively by the NSF. Some of them are funded in the 80s and 90s. You start seeing stuff that's funded by seed money from the National Science Foundation as well as from AT&T Bell Labs. And some of it is just self-sustaining. It's, hey, you want to join? Buy a modem. Maintain your modem. We'll maintain the modem that you send us. Woo! But it's in the 1980s that we start seeing businesses and corporations trying to figure out how, in the late 1980s and early 90s, we start seeing corporations realizing, hey, this internet thing, I'm sure there's a way to make money off of it, right? How can we make money? And that's where things start getting really complicated, and where we have the Telecommunications Act of 1992 come into play, and all that fun stuff. So, tune in tomorrow to hear about when things started getting commercialized. We saw a couple different runs at it with Telenet, etc. But it starts picking up really, really fast in the late 80s and early 90s as the government, particularly under the Clinton administration, starts really aiming to help help these telecommunication businesses get going as internet service providers. So, yeah. I'm having fun. Hope y'all are having fun. Hope I'm not being too sassy about it. About my dislike of how ISPs came into the scene and made everything cost money when it used to be this like cool free resource that we got through our local municipalities and universities. But it's a world we could live in again. Vice President Al Gore invented the internet. Yeah. But yeah. I will see y'all tomorrow. In the meantime, have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'm gonna keep working on these graphics. And if you don't already follow my Patreon, it doesn't cost you anything. I have some things that I post there that are restricted to people who are paying supporters, since this is my full-time job and I need to make money somehow, so that I can pay my rent. If you want notifications for when I'm posting like my schedules or like graphics or things, you can follow my Patreon and you'll get notifications of those. And so you'll be able to see my schedule for this week, for example. And all that kind of stuff. And that is also where I'm going to be putting my finished internet timeline graphics. So check it out. I'll see y'all then. Bye.